about their design process and their design philosophy, and also very specifically about the way that they collaborate with craftsmen. So with the Bellas Artes projects, we're very, very committed to the idea of looking at the craft from a contemporary perspective, and we're very eager to create conversations with people who are doing this in very interesting, creative ways. So I'm just going to tell you about our speakers tonight. So Nikki Escalona-Tayag is the managing director of Wilson and Nikki. She received a BS in architecture from the University of San Tomaso and became a licensed architect in 2010. Her interests are the integration of natural and technological lighting in architecture and the application of lighting design technologies such as light tuning systems and smart home controls. C. Mark Wilson is a senior partner at Wilson and Nikki. His most recent work has been dedicated to finding sustainability through strategic lighting. Wilson received his BFA in 19th and 20th century Western art from Harvard University and his MFA in lighting design from Parsons. At Parsons, he met his business partner Nikki Escalona-Tayag. Their collaborations include the lighting for the Soros, the Holy Angel University's Chapel, and the Bellas Artes Outpost, which we're here today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Mark and Nikki.
So hi Jay, hi everybody. So we have a brief slide presentation which centers mostly on the creation of this space and working with the craftsmen in Bataan. And I think in a way what we're going to do is introduce what's going on in Bataan and the relationship of that place to this place. So, first slide. So these are pictures of what exists up in Bataan, and our clients are the family that owns this project called Las Casas, Filipinas de Acuzar. So it's really the hobby of a man named Jerry Acuzar, who is trained as an architect, but works more as a developer, and in this context is a collector. Alright, I'm going to talk about what he's done in order to keep these houses preserved. He's created these workshops that we're calling these the craft workshops that produce cement tiles, such as these what we're standing on, and such as this. The next slide. And this, for instance, the ocean is over here, and this is a new building in a traditional style, an outdoor cement tile. And this, and that. And we have a video, correct?
Yes.
Is this the right situation? Yeah. There are 7 workshops over there. Cement tile is one, and we'll show you that first. And we work with cement tile, but also with other workshops. The most impressive workshop for me is the terracotta, because they have a 12-meter kiln. So it goes from this wall to the back, all in red brick, and it's a furnace that's kept hot for 2 weeks when they bake their brick. That makes one tile. One tile.
Pero dalawang tao, mga kasi
and you saw the building where cement tile is produced. So next slide, please. So I guess what we were trying to do in building this space. So the Jam is an art history student. She spent 10 years in Europe studying art history and working in the field of art. And when she came back, she really wanted to explore contemporary art in the context of the Philippines, and convinced her dad to support this project, and is bringing this layer of contemporary art to this project in Bataan. No? And she's bringing artists from Philippines and abroad to work with the workshops. So the Alquilizans, for instance, who are Filipino but based in Australia, they went and spent, I think, about 3 or 4 weeks in Bataan. And what they were very moved by was the kind of furniture, if you notice, like behind, that is something made by the workers in the woodworking shop. So for instance, this thing that Nikki, this sofa that Nikki and I are sitting on, was made by the woodworking workshop. But they're not going to make things like this for themselves to sit on, they make things like that. So the Alquilizans found them fascinating as found objects and created this whole installation around it, where these found objects become part of a Zen garden. So anyway, so the point is that contemporary art is trying to infuse the workshops themselves, and part of Jam's idea was how can the craftspeople start to think like artists? And how can I make the imported artists, Filipino or otherwise, start to think more and more like craftsmen? Because art today is more and more conceptual, right? People do less and less with their hands. So she really felt, and I was more interested in the other aspect, which is how do these workers become affected by artists? Because I think most people in the Philippines, when I encounter them, they don't really care so much about the workers. They don't really care if the workers are enriched by their everyday work. So that really kind of drew me into Jam's way of thinking and into this project. So we'll talk a little bit about how this sofa came to be and how the whole project came to be through the slides. So when we came to this project, I suggested to use as much as possible the workshops, and you can see the cement tile up here, and the second thing that the workshops produce is this, it's from Ron marble chip, inset within cement. In Italian they call it terrazzo. And so in Bataan, of course, traditional houses are granulitic. We also call it granulitic in Filipino, and it was used all the way until about the Second World War, but normally the cement is colored red, right? If you know in your Lora's house, it's usually granulitic in red or white on marble chips, but they had never done it in an industrial grade, and they had never done it in a hexagon. They had only ever done it in a square, and they didn't want to do it because they didn't have the steel. It's a steel mold. You saw the big thing. That rotation is one little mold. So they produced these two for us, and the client and us, we went through a number of iterations, but she agreed that downstairs, in the next slide, we would, this was an early render that we presented. The white stands for a thicker tile, and the gray stands for a thinner tile. And what we were trying to do was, first of all, to use it on the walls in a way that suggested movement, because when you go up to Bataan, it's a very, feels like the nature forces are almost stronger than you. Like when you go out into the ocean, most of the time you can't really swim because the undertow is so strong it pulls you out, and the waves are very big. And then off to the right, as you look on the beach, is the Bataan nuclear power plant, and so it's almost surreal place. So we were kind of just trying to bring a bit of that mood into here. This was very, very difficult for the workshop to install, because they had not ever done it on the wall, and they had never done a thick and a thin. So it presented a lot of challenges, and I think we all grew from the process. This one on the floor is the topographical map of the client's property in Bataan, where the the blue is the peaks, and the valleys is everything else, correct? So that was also very challenging to install. They had never done anything so random, as you could tell from the contextual pictures. It's more in a traditional style. And then we also applied it to the tables. Yes?
I think what you mentioned earlier, what Mark mentioned earlier about this, this forces in Bataan, I like when he said to me, it's like the push and pull. And that, I think, was the great concept behind the foyer, because it's this very narrow but long space. And then you sort of feel the push and the pull. And I always said this is like my favorite spot in the whole outpost. Because it has that dramatic effect, and then you go up, and then this is a great expanse. But before that, it's sort of this, this push and pull that you feel in this very narrow space.
Yeah, Nikki's instinct was, why don't we enlarge it with Nikki white or something? But actually, another reason behind this color, this industrial color, is that the client didn't really have a big budget for lighting. So as lighting designers, what you can do is, there's something that our eyes do called adaptation. Our eyes adapt to darkness relatively quickly. So if you, as the viewer, occupy a dark space first, and then you emerge into light, the brighter, the upstairs feels brighter, correct? But if this was brighter and we left that at the same brightness level, it wouldn't feel bright. So it's a bit of a lighting trick where, our darkness, our eyes are now adapting to dark light, and oh, the upstairs looks so bright. So that was kind of a secondary concept there. And then here, this was not a very conceptual space. It really had to be very flexible and neutral, correct? So we're not going to talk about that. It was this room, which the client calls the salon or the reading room, which we wait. So this is kind of a cut through where we disappeared this wall, right? This is a render. And you're seeing the office back here, the reading room itself, and then we originally intended this to be more of a projection room, but part of the original concept was using these large, what they call wallpaper in the workshops, but in fact they've innovated something made out of, what's it made out of? It's Sintra board. It's like a plastic Sintra board. There's nothing paper to do with it at all. And then they, with a silk screen, they put something on it. So we were considering doing that, and we still might do that. But that's what this is showing. Next. Yeah, this is a view towards there. And this is actual photography of the room. And here, we wanted to talk about these two pieces because this is half terracotta. They have a river, which produces a very, very red brick, but it's very soft. And this is what I was saying, that they have a very large kiln, and they put the terracotta in the brick, but it actually is very soft. And so they've innovated, they've mixed it with Portland cement. So that's why if you notice this, it's actually pink, but it's very dense, and it doesn't break easily. And then this is copper, but it's plumbing pipe. Right, so we were really going, you can see from the gray tile and the found industrial object, it's kind of going in a more modern direction. And then this naman, can we go to the next slide? This was in a way an homage to the dad, because the dad really is coming from a traditional point of view. So this is it's a very bad slide taken from the internet, but it's a Batangas Master One. Can we go to the previous slide? Where, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Batangas Uno furniture style. Has anybody heard of this? So this in the vicinity of Taal in the 1700s, 1750s to 1790s, there are pieces found that are attributed by a scholar named Ramon Villegas, who just died, and Oming Esquerra. They consider this guy, it's an atelier or a studio, and they don't know the name because the pieces are not signed, but they call him Batangas Master One. So collectors in the Philippines call it Batangas Uno. Okay? They are the most coveted piece of furniture in the Philippines. There are only maybe less than 100 pieces or that have survived. So this is in a way a tribute to that because Mr. Acuzar loves these pieces, correct? This is the apogee of Philippine collecting. I mean, the last one went for 20 million pesos. 20 million pesos. So they are all balayo. It's camagong. It's with brass nails, and then it's rococo, right? It's Philippine rococo. So the second one is then in the 1800s to 1850s, Batangas was a very wealthy province, mostly due to sugar, correct? Because they were trading. The Philippines had tariff-free export to, I guess, Europe through the New World and also to Mexico and Spain. So you had the rise of the hacienda class, correct? So then the Batangas Master II, actually I put an S, what Mr. Villegas theorized was that there were several workshops or several ateliers of, probably people who had been trained by Batangas Master I, and they now are spread out throughout the southern Tagalog region of the Batangas area. So it's not anymore just in the Taal region, correct? So this is happening in the first half of the 1900s, and then it looks more like this. So this chair actually, this sofa actually, is more of a homage to this piece. So you can see the flanges, you can see what you call the cabriole leg, the ogee stretcher, the sinepa, correct, and the flanges. It's actually sort of quite literal and stretched out, but we wanted to create something that was really difficult for them to do and not industrial, much more in a handcraft model, because the workshop for the wood, they got somebody from Betis Pampanga who's 72 years old, who's considered a master carver, and he's leading younger men in the workshop. So we really wanted something that's an homage to hand skill. We created 2 of them. They're actually quite different from the other. We really tried to make a kind of a standard one because part of the idea was, well, maybe we can get production out of this and people can order furniture. But it turned out for things like probably the coffee table and the floor lamp, that's easy to replicate, more or less. But this one, like the 3 that we've made, they're all so different. And I go there and I'm like, I told you not to do this, I told you not to do that. It's all different. So it really was, for me, this learning point where it's so different from industrial production. When you work with craftsmen, it's about an individual relationship. It's about their children get sick and they need to take care of that, and you need to be supportive of that. It's about festivals and holidays and human life, and it's very different. It's not a factory. So I don't know. So it was a really great learning point for me. Yeah, so we just came up with all these drawings next together to sort of illustrate things that this was just the beginning, but we kind of really had to go there or work very closely with Efren to help them make this humongous things. So do you have anything to add before we? Yeah. So that's kind of our very brief presentation about this space, and we really wanted it to turn more into a conversation. So anyway, the first question was about the renovation of the project. It was about a year, which is quite fast.
Quite fast for this kind of space, especially since most of what you see is custom.
Yeah.
So usually when you have custom, it takes longer, but because the Acuzars constructed the entire space,
we were actually lucky because they own a construction company. So
you were to push.
It was quite easy to get things done quickly. But this floor we changed it was hard to prototype, and when you custom, things take a long time. The table is ours also, right?
Can you? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Once you create products, how do people get to hear about them? How do people get to order them? How do you expose your products to?
We haven't actually done the product thing yet, right? I think it would be mostly through social media because we have a lot of savvy. But to be very honest, that focus has kind of it hasn't happened. It's really much more of a contemporary art focus. I think clients are very busy with just managing the residencies and getting people over here. It's my impression.
And also because they're not into mass production. I think Mark, you mentioned earlier that they're not, you have to think about their lives also in Madaan. It's not, it's not like a factory where you can kind of just replicate.
Yeah, but they have actually worked, 7 workshops have something like 250 people, and that's all dedicated to keeping these houses maintained. They actually don't have a lot of space for them. Fatima, you were going to say something?
Yeah, can you just talk about your theory or preference on design versus function, and maybe kind of how do you negotiate those principles, whether you prioritize design more? I mean, I know it's a constant negotiation when you're designing, especially furniture, of course. And maybe speak about your collaborative process and how you guys work together and what facets maybe you work on versus what Mark works on.
You can start that.
Yeah, the way I heard the question was, what did Fatima say?
I think, well, just to kind of start it, Mark has basically fills in a lot of blanks for me. I mean,
and
like
fills in a lot of blanks.
yeah, and I think that's the beauty of the partnership. And whenever people ask me, I always like try to give them an analogy of some sort. And for instance, like if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you know that there's 2 writers, 2 creators, and their processes they go back and forth. And for the many years that Mark and I have worked together, even when we were in school, it's always been a back and forth. And I think that's sort of the strength of our partnership in our union. We usually have a general direction, and he always jump starts or kicks off a project. And then he'll come to me and say, "What do you think about this?" And then I sort of do my edits and give my 2 cents, and then I throw it back to him. And I think that that's really a strength that we have because I'm not all-knowing of everything, I get that, and he fills in the blanks for me. Like he can fill in my weaknesses, and I hopefully do the same for him. But when it comes to like function and form and versus aesthetic and being very designy, I think that I'm really Miss Practical. And I think it's because of my architecture orientation where I always have to think about the practicality of things and how to get things built. And Mark is really the opposite, which is, I think, is a good sort of marriage, because he sees the things that I don't, and I like to see the things that he doesn't. We fill in the blanks, and that's what's great about it.
Yeah, Nikki once said, what I really need to do is figure out how to build when you design,
Yeah.
which is really
Yeah.
simplifying the role. But I don't think I design things so unbuildable, but I am much more. I have an art history background, and then history of decorative arts was very much kind of a hobby. My undergraduate is 19th and 20th century Western fine arts history. So we're talking mostly painting and sculpture. But I always loved furniture, and I really learned, when I left college, I worked at Knoll in New York, which is very iconic furniture company. And then when I came back to the Philippines in 1985, I worked for a guy named Larry Cruz, who was, in those days, you could only kind of go out to a hotel for a meal or go to like an estero. There weren't really restaurants. So he created Café Adriático, Bistro Burgos, and when you went to the original Café Adriático, there was like beautiful antiques. Like real 19th century wooden furniture. It wasn't reproduction, and you were seated at it and you could touch it and it felt, wow, it felt so nice, And then I worked for him, and he actually kind of opened my eyes and introduced me to Kit Rojas, Tony Martino, Ramon Villegas, all the people who I've put together the scholarship about Philippine furniture. And in the 80s, I compared like a table from Knoll. I mean, you could buy a Saarinen marble top tulip base table, very iconic, in New York for $10,000, which was, I thought, a lot of money. And then you could come here and buy an 18th century table for like a third of that. It's handmade and unique and from a tropical hardwood. I thought, wow, there is so much value in these objects, these Philippine objects. And then I really started to collect and study Philippine furniture. So when I met Mr. Acuzar, I was really interested in his point of view. And he really likes these pieces, but he likes the houses more. And I don't know, I just found him a very fascinating character, and I also found Jam's point of view very fascinating. But I guess my design process, to answer your question, is much more free associative. I kind of, because I have a background in history, I kind of like to free associate with it. Like I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a topographical map on the floor, partly also because we could get a random pattern. I suggested the hexagon. I thought that would be less monotonous than a tile. I also thought because this is about a creative space, fostering residencies of creative people, like a little box, a square is much more, I don't know, tight. You know, the open-ended angles of a pentagon. Is that pentagon? Yeah, pentagon. It felt, and Jam did not like it. She didn't like the pentagon at first. And then she was like, oh yeah, wow. And then it became her logo, actually. I think the conceptual phase for every designer is really the most important, because you have to help a client. You asked about function, and of course every space has to address functional needs, at a very high level. But that's not what's going to make the client love being there or really enjoy the experience of going through the design process. It's going to be where you really try and create a very rich narrative for them. And that makes them want to stay in that room, longer and longer, I think. And it's the more you can free associate and try and create these vertical and lateral associations between client needs and client personality. How do you get buy-in from clients? You can't just listen to what they say. You have to read between the lines. And so I think that's kind of what we're trying to do with this. Yeah.
Can you discuss some of your design lighting challenges, for example, like for Tesoros?
Design lighting challenges.
Challenges.
Okay.
For Tesoros, specifically, compatibility, because we use LEDs. I would say about 99% of our projects we use LED as much as we can. And Mark and I love to dim, and whenever we specify fixtures and control systems, there's usually an issue with dimming, especially with LEDs. And I think from a technical point of view that can become an issue, but I don't think we've had any major.
No. For me, I think with Tesoros, I don't know if you're familiar with that building, but it's a lot of graphics on the surface. The client wanted to light the whole surface, grazing with LEDs, and our big challenge was saying no. That's too much light. Let's go back.
And that was before we put the vinyl sticker. It was just concrete.
Well, she wanted to light the vinyl. She wanted to light the graphic. There weren't a lot of. That project was quite smooth, to be honest. Once you emerge from a very strong conceptual and your renders are strong and photometrically correct, then the client knows what to expect, and what happens has correspondence to it should be fairly smooth. We're very renders based in our conceptual phase. James.
I don't know anything about furniture, but I'm wondering, is there a renaissance in Philippine furniture? And
I think we definitely have a strong contemporary Filipino furniture industry now. I don't know necessarily how to say Renaissance, but it's not what the last great decade of Philippine furniture, by which I mean really handmade, not many imported parts, because now we're importing a lot of our it's usually Cebu, and it's more for export, correct? So a lot of our parts, drawer runners, wood is no longer, Philippine furniture is no longer made of Philippine wood. Philippine furniture is made of ash, walnut, oak, right? Because we have lost our wood. We don't have forests anymore. So wood has to be sustainably farmed, so we have to import. So all of that, it's a very different industry, right? In 1950, 60, we made furniture in Western style. So I'm thinking of like attenuated, fluted, like these tables that we designed are kind of an homage to mid-century style. But whereas in the US, you're already getting, or Europe, you're getting veneered furniture in mid-century, we are still using solid Nara plank, right? Abroad, it's just a thin veneer. Here, it's stale wood, so it's as if it never changed from, when the Spanish brought the furniture. That's the last Philippine handmade furniture. Then we move into the 70s and 80s, and we're starting to import our wood, and machines are imported also. So we're competing then very globally. In a way you can say, I think Kenneth Cohen is known as a Filipino designer, but it's not, the materials aren't necessarily global. And it's highly mechanized. No more hand production.
Would you use Philippine mahogany?
Is that Jamelina? We only work with sustainable woods, and I think that's Lawaan or Jamelina. But they're not really furniture grade. This is the prototype, and this one we said let's make it only in Jamelina because it's not expensive. That's why it's not a beautiful wood, and we painted it black. So, and then that one we used Balayang and Nara, but I needed too much. It's just in the end we don't have furniture grade wood. The one in Jamelina is soft. So
Like Philippine mahogany.
I think that's Lawaan, right? What's Philippine mahogany? And that doesn't come out of, that's actually an imported tree. It's an African tree that was planted here in the 70s. So it doesn't come out of a Philippine tradition. You don't have great Filipino furniture made out of that wood. I'm not familiar with that. And when we're using that wood, it's not expensive. It's for beds or bed frames. We're not getting great wood made out of that.
Sort of moving beyond the mistake, I'm very curious because the work that you produced for this space was very much a result of your scholarship. I'm very curious about that pursuit as well. Because you come
Very much a result of
your scholarship with Filipino furniture. So I'm very curious about you're tracing the work of very specific scholars in your work to realize this. I'm very curious about that.
Well, I
how
think
you weave it into your process.
Yeah, I mean, it was this piece that was supposedly an homage to, the great Filipino furniture. I was very particular, for instance, they didn't know how to do it, but this piece has to be one piece of wood. So we even showed them that you cut it out of the block, you trace it, because if that's broken, or if that's not one piece, it can all come apart, right? So all of these, there's a frame here. This frame kind of locks it. None of this has no nails, right? In that time, this was dowel. So it's either Hawaiian or kahoy, and it's a dowel. And in a way, it was kind of, I had to work with them to show them a more traditional way of doing it. But they had never built Batangas 1 style, Batangas 2 style piece before. So actually, I think one of the reasons they turned out well is just Mr. Acuzar was really interested in succeeding. These tables were not made by, these are made by a very fine furniture maker in Pampanga named Tayag. And actually it's a collaboration because he and I really kind of came in joint. It's finish, and that's nara, but it's stained. Not stained, it's bleached. It's bleached. Because nara is actually either red or yellow. There's actually a brown and a white, but those are very rare. But mostly you get red and yellow, which I find very saturated, and a lot of people like to bring down the redness or the yellowness. And so you do 3 coats of bleach. It's an AB, it's a vinegar or an acid, and then you take. So there's 2 parts to the wood. There's the surface, and then there's the aspi or the grain, where the surface goes in. It's the pore. It's like the pores of the skin. And so the bleach leaves the surface white. And then we take a white paint. I like John Edwards. I have a John Edwards white that I really like. And then you just remove it with a basahan or a rag. And then the grain, the paint stays in the grain. Correct? So you get a little, the whitest part of the surface is actually in the grain. So you get, that's like, or sometimes they call that pleaching or liming. So that could not be done by the workshops. The workshops are not at that level. Even the contractor of the space, I mean, at the end we were like, well, they're not a finishing contractor. Yeah, I mean, they're not a high-end residential contractor. But I think JAM's intention is to kind of bring them there, but in the end, it's really the residencies, I think, that are really taking our energies right now. But I get more and more excited when we can make really nice things like Jake.
So the direction you're taking when you said this is not a managed Philippine furniture, is that a sort of a direction that is possible today?
For the Philippines as a whole?
Yeah.
I think not, because it's, well, even all over the world, you do get artists who work in fine furniture, and they're producing very beautiful things and they're very handcrafted, but it's so expensive. It's very small, it's very elite. And I mean, it actually does excite me, but I don't know, it's so small. It's not a big direction. And we don't have the wood anymore. I love these chairs, by the way. I lent to Jam. These black ones. I mean, they remind me of Donald Judd, and I thought they would look great in space. And they're from Sagada. They're like 1980s. I think they were made by a guy named Greg Sabado, and they're Ifugao style. And what the bulul of the Ifugao, they're black because the blood, when we cut ourselves, it doesn't heal as red, it heals as black, right? So when they do the sacrifice of the chicken and they put it on the statue, the reason the statue is black is because the blood dries as black. But then in the 70s, they took shoe polish and they put it on their furniture because they were used to seeing wood that's black. So they innovated their own technique, and so it's actually shoe polish. And shoe polish is very hard to remove. So it's it's 30 years old, and it's still black. But I mean, I really like it as a Filipino object.
Wouldn't the local market be interested with objects like this, and isn't it great?
Yes, but there's these are collectibles. These are what you call collectibles. They're not mass market, and there's definitely a market for them. But it's not at all what Kue does. It's not mass production. This is really craft. This is what it's looking like now. It's very small production, expensive.
So you were saying that with this table in particular, it was a very collaborative process.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wondering how you go about that as a designer.
Yeah, you know, first of all, like you have to have a very open-ended, no pressure conceptual phase where it's really a meeting of the minds, you know, and you have to really like that other person because you kind of, otherwise you can't flow into their head, you know.
It's a long relationship.
It's a long relationship. I've known Claude for a very long time. We're very Magka vibes, you know. That's the only way collaborations really work. Like Nikki and I, we're very Magka, you know. Otherwise they don't.
Yeah.
People use oil finishes for furniture
Yes.
instead of blood and plasticized stuff.
Well, not on those chairs, but on these chairs, it's either it's actually Mang Omeng Escalona, who in the 70s and 80s was buying this furniture from the houses, you know, the Batangas Unos, Batangas Dos, and they're kind of falling apart, right? They're wobbly. And then he went to Hong Kong and met the people who are restoring Chinese Ming furniture, right? And he saw how they were taken apart with the dowel joints, and he learned tung oil. There's basically tung oil is what the Chinese use, and I can't tell you what plant that comes from, but that's the classic Chinese oil. You apply it after. Well, first of all, you strip the furniture of all the dirt. It's a number of sandpaper layers that start with 300, then 600, 1000, and then 1200. 1200 is the finest sandpaper. So the surface of the wood is very silky and smooth. Then you take a tung oil. Here, they usually use a linseed oil. It's just more readily available. That takes about a week to dry. In hot weather. In Tagulan, it takes longer because the heat, the wood expands, it takes in the oil. After it dries, then you apply beeswax. And it's really a very beautiful finish because you start to see the depth of the wood. It just feels so nice to touch.
What about native oils like peeling nut oil or?
I love peeling nut oil, but I haven't tried it on furniture. Do you have experience?
Actually, we do that in our own house for our own furniture.
You use peeling nut?
Yeah, it's nice. When it's just thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a while to dry.
Yeah.
At least
But it's a bit brown, right?
Yeah.
So does it color the wood? It does.
It's really nice. It brings out the grain of the wood. You use natural oil. You use the sanding sealer first, right? After cutting the wood.
Normally the sanding sealer is not applied if it's an oil finish. Is that working for you?
Actually, I finished my weaving wood using sanding sealer,
Yeah.
which helped drying out the gumminess that was inside the wood,
Okay.
and it was sanded with oil, with sandpaper. And it was a beautiful
Wait,
finish.
sanding sealer first and then you sanded it?
After the sanding sealer dries, let's say the next day or after 2 days, you dip your piece of sandpaper in oil, and then you sand the furniture, and it's really beautiful finish. You try different kinds of oil, if you want olive oil.
Yeah, that's expensive oil.
That's expensive.
What about coconut?
Coconut, okay.
Yeah.
I think peanut is one of the most dense oil because it's very heavy. Okay. It really soaks into the furniture too.
Yeah. So what kind of wood are you using? For your looms, for instance?
For my loom, I bought it from a Frenchman. I don't know what kind of wood he used.
Nice.
So I bought the loom and I asked my neighbor, who's a furniture person, how to finish it. I don't know if you heard the name El Delange. Designs Delange.
Oh, Nick Delange.
Nick Delange is his son.
Yeah.
They're a relative. His
Okay.
dad, El Delange,
Yeah, they're beautiful
mom
things.
lived in California. And it was Al, who's the first cousin of my husband, who taught me how to finish wood that way. And that's what they do. Their wood. Turned out very, very well.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much, Mark.